Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on digitizing engagement. My name is Megan McMahon, and I am the Research Director here with Link Senior. A few housekeeping items before we begin. After this webinar, you will receive a link to a survey to fill out so that you are eligible for your NAB and NCAT CEU credit hours. Please fill this out no later than midnight on Sunday, July 22nd. Also, if you have a question during the webinar, please use the chat box to share with us. The webinar will be recorded today, and we will make it available on our website later this afternoon. At the end of the webinar, you're going to walk away with an understanding of the best tools and technologies available in the market for supporting engagement and well-being for your residents. Today, we are delighted to have Professor Galina Madjaroff with us, the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and Clinical Associate Professor at the Erickson School at UNBC in Maryland. Galina's current research focuses on improving the lives of older adults with dementia using accessible technologies, and most recently, she was awarded a National Science Foundation grant to explore negotiating cyber systems access for older adults with mild neurocognitive disorder. Here's a description today of what Professor Madjaroff is going to cover. And before we get started with that, we just wanted to talk to start about the importance of engagement for residents. To move from providing only the most basic needs of shelter, safety, and physiological assistance to our residents, we need to understand how to optimize their engagement strategies and move the residents up on Maslow's pyramid. Providers also need to focus on supporting autonomy, spontaneity, and individualized interests in their engagement programming. By doing this, every resident becomes an active participant in decision-making in partnership with staff, and this raises their self-esteem, allowing them to live purposefully in their community, no matter what their current needs or interests might be. Of course, we know the goal each day should be that residents can live purposefully by always receiving the right amount of attention at the right time. And from here, I'm going to throw it over to Professor Madjaroff to jump in on engagement and what she's going to share with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Megan. I really appreciate it. I want to thank you and Link Senior for having me. I'm really excited to talk about a passion of mine, and obviously I have been devoting my career to technology and supporting older adults, and I'm very excited to talk about engagement. And so, how do you define engagement? And as a researcher, I often ask myself that. And to me, meaningful engagement really means being able to actively participate. Since I've been working with dementia population and their caregivers, it is particularly important for me to involve people with dementia in research, but most importantly, in design of new technologies. Engagement should really be founded on the values of personhood, relationship, and ethical practice. And so knowing the person, drawing on their biography and life experience, their meaningful relationships, authentic partnerships, those are really key components to really understanding what is good, meaningful relationship. Participation, collaboration, those are really, really important. And as a researcher, ethics are really, really critical. So I always abide by the ethical principles of autonomy, beneficence, and we really need to have our residents and our participants always involved and always being a part of really the research or the work that we're doing. So being listened to as an equal is really important, having a sense of purpose, and really, being technology as sort of an outlet for skills and experience. And so I really look for technologies that help with self-esteem and sense of accomplishment, and being able to address some of the really important issues for older adults with or without cognitive impairment. And so being able to provide that perspective is really, really important. So what is engagement through technology of our residents? I'm sorry, we're a slide ahead. Just go back. Perfect. There's lots of benefits to the organization. There's credibility, legitimacy, that the organization is really invested in technology, and that you're really, that you're giving your residents a voice, the participants or whoever, the older adults that you're working with, a voice, and are focused on their needs and interests. And technology is a huge part of that. We also make sure that our family partners are involved, that our caregivers are involved. And the focus of my research is not only with the individual, but really their entire network, which is really, really key. And tech is really relevant. There's lots of interesting things that we'll talk about today, and it's a hot topic. And so if you want to be on the cutting edge, you have to get engaged and you have to get involved. So informed decision making is really key. And in all honesty, it's quite difficult. The market is so saturated. There's lots of options out there, and how do you make those choices? It can be quite difficult. So it's really important to identify the gaps in services and really talk to the people that we're trying to help and understand what their needs are. So technology can really add depth to your organization, and when staff is engaged and we're really positive about new technology, it can be really, really, it could really improve the quality of life, which is really wonderful. But there are lots of barriers to adoption. So we're ready for the next slide. Anything from perceived usefulness, what is the benefit for me? What is the benefit for me as an individual or for our organization? And you may have tried technology that hasn't worked and you're apprehensive to kind of bring something else into the organization. But to be honest, that's really the best way to learn. We worry about the degree of ease of use. You don't want to devote your entire IT team to this one piece of technology that may or may not work. And so it is a bit high risk. There is a cost involved. We have to think about what are the benefits to our customer in adopting this system or this technology, and what are the facilitating conditions? Is there appropriate infrastructure? Some technologies are very easy to bring in, others really require a lot of complex support, and sometimes we don't have the ability to provide that. And so a lot of our research shows that there's also some security concerns, mainly about privacy. Obviously, I'm very interested in that topic, which is sort of the next phase of my research, but we see that concern from older adults. And to be honest with you, I can't say that I have had a personal experience as a researcher. I wanted to mention a project we did a couple of years ago with Gmail, one of the large CCRCs here in Maryland. And we asked for a lot of sensitive information. And to be honest with you, our participants really shared with us that the benefits outweighed the security risks. And so that was quite interesting. So we were just very open and honest about the data that we were collecting and what was the benefit to the resident. Similarly, with my Amazon Alexa project that I'm heavily involved with now, I was very apprehensive. I was nervous about our participants thinking that, this thing is going to be listening to us all the time. It's going to be capturing our conversations, and sending all of that data to the cloud. But I had absolutely no dropout. People were really open to using the device, and I'll talk a little bit more about Alexa later on. But personally, I haven't faced a lot of the security issues, but I know that they're there, and it is important to address them. So how do we alleviate some of these barriers? How do we select the best technology? Next slide. Addressing those safety and security issues, training, and The last one is a bit cheeky. Screenshots are priceless, but they really can be. Sometimes the really low-tech solutions can be the best in terms of training. And education is key. Consumers want to be sold on the benefits. What is the benefit for me on this new technology? Is it greater independence? Is it more flexibility? Do I get to know more about my health data and well-being levels? How does it impact me? Not so much, what researcher is collecting this data, or does my physician have access to this? It's really the benefit to the person. And am I going to get 24/7 support? That was a big question for us when we started the research, was, can I call you if my Wi-Fi goes down or when something goes wrong? And we were there. And we didn't face that many technical issues, but I think the idea of the comfort of that sort of full support was really important. So what is the best technology for you or your organization? To be honest with you, there are an abundance of reports and guides to the best tech for seniors. It's really overwhelming. There's lots of consumer technologies. I'll talk about Alexa a lot just because I'm immersed in that research, but there's Google Home, there's the Connect, there's lots of different kind of engagement technologies that really serve all ages. And so what is the best tech? And in my personal opinion, it's really sort of a mix of both. The best technology is something that supports seniors and really can be customizable and personalizable, but it looks like consumer tech. There are some technologies out there that really have sort of combined those two aspects, but there's not a lot. And so, unfortunately, fortunately, I have had the pleasure of working with designers, and a lot of the time it is sort of throwing out ideas and developing them and seeing what kind of catches on. And in my personal opinion, it's not the best approach. We really want to look at what are the needs of our users, and user studies can be very expensive. And so that's another apprehension of designers and developers of these types of technologies. But there needs to be some sort of solid research. And as a researcher myself, I can say that a lot of the time, you can send out a couple of surveys, but that's not really a deep dive. That's not really a really good way to sort of examine whether technology is good or not. So the market is saturated. There's lots of senior tech startups, and in a little bit I'll give you some idea of what are some companies that are really doing some good work. But it really it will take some thinking about who are your stakeholders, what is the support that you're able and willing to provide, and really kind of make those technology decisions after that. So there's lots of senior tech at CES. We see a lot of senior friendly this and that, and a lot of the time, people want the jitterbug phone capabilities, but they want it to look like an iPhone. And like I said, that's the best of both worlds, but we really need to be pushing technology companies to focus on that. Next slide. So not all tech is created equal. What are the right tools and technologies? And to be honest, it's important to select companies to work with that are credible, that really represent the voice of your resident, of your customer, and their needs and their interests. And I have worked with companies in the past who really haphazardly designed their product and just wanted to have very few participants to test it out and then put it out on market. And that's not really credible work. And so doing your homework on which technologies are really focusing on capitalizing on the skills and abilities of the person, it's really key. So technology that really supports engagement that's relevant. If we're working with dementia, we want to focus on memory care technologies that really are doing good work. Informed decision making, I mentioned, who are you choosing to work with, whether it's consumer technology or something that's specifically developed for our population, making an informed decision and really hearing the voice of staff members, of our residents, of people who really are sort of really understand our customer. That's really key. And it's really important to focus on identifying the gaps in services. What are we missing and how can technology fill that gap? And a lot of the time, it's not just one tech. And I know that's not probably what you wanted to hear, but that's the truth. There really isn't any miracle solution that will engage one person who has this level of abilities and then be able to accommodate another. Sometimes it takes a hub of technologies or maybe one piece of tech that really connects to others. So there really isn't one. But there may be a couple that serve your needs. And so technologies that provide us with good data, a lot of the time we'll get feedback, we'll get push notifications that either we don't really care about and it's just meaningless information. And so good data is really, really key. And so those are the companies that you want to work with. Addressing real issues. As you know, there's a million health apps focusing on senior health, but which ones are really the ones that kind of give us the data that gives us some insight, some realistic insight? And so involving staff is really key. I found in my experience that the talking to staff members, caregivers, and involving them and really making somebody a tech champion. People are excited about trying new things, and it doesn't hurt to give someone a tablet or an Alexa and just have them interact and play with it and give you their feedback. I found that exceptionally helpful. Slide. So how do we choose the right technology? I kind of wanted to boil it down to a couple of key components. What are the needs of our residents? I mean, that's really key. Realistically, we can't find one technology, but we can have a hub of technologies. And I'll give you the Alexa example just because I'm immersed in that research. And I promise I don't work for Amazon. Although that might have been a good perk. But Alexa is a really great example of a nice technology hub because it's an engagement. It's a voice user interface which engages. So there's lots of games and skills and interesting components. But at the same time, it connects to your lights, to your thermostat, to your smart lock, to your TV. And to be honest with you, working with my participants is how I have really found out a lot of the other components of Alexa and really the capabilities. And so my participants who are in their 70s and 80s with cognitive impairment are really eager to learn about these technologies and explore and add more to their hub, which is really great. And it's really important to think about reciprocity. And so it's not so much about giving someone a tool and then expecting them to use it. It really is a back and forth. It's sharing experiences. It's listening. It's thinking about this person being involved in the decision making and having our residents, our seniors, providing real involvement and empower. And this really is empowering for the individual. And so when I talk to my participants, it's both parties, caregiver, care recipient, about how are they using the technologies. And I have had some really amazing insights from both individuals, not just caregiver or just person with dementia. And so there really is no one way of choosing the right technology. I think it's important to and not always focus on, it's important for the technology to be future proof, but that's virtually impossible. We have to think about what can solve some of our issues within the next 3 to 5 years. And so it really is important to have to identify who our key stakeholders are and develop clear guidelines. We do it with other aspects in our organization. We should do the same with technology. And so having a set of guidelines developed can be really important and can really impact our decisions in terms of how to choose the best technology. So I wanted to focus on what are some of the hot topics, what are some of the things that really are happening in the senior tech engagement space, and virtual reality is probably on top of the list, as well as voice user interfaces. I started working with a voice user interface about a year ago, and in terms of what was being put out to conferences and research articles, there was really very few studies focusing on older adults and VUIs, and now there's quite a bit more. And so just like in technology and research, this happens. People, kind of catch on to the next new shiny thing and start working with it. But it's exciting. It's really giving us insight into how to make these interfaces better, more user friendly. And the market is overflowing with a lot of interesting and engaging companies. Some are good, some are bad. And I really encourage you to attend meetings and really kind of connect and see some of these tech presentations. That's really sort of the best way that I find new technologies to explore, is being involved and, listening to pitches and poking around websites and getting engaged. So virtual reality, robotics, we have a lot of options. Not as many options that are really senior focused, which are the ones that I want to kind of showcase today, but even wearables. A couple of years ago, I didn't think that wearables were really going anywhere, and you may be thinking nobody's wearing a Fitbit anymore, particularly, those individuals that we serve, but the number of wearable devices is growing. I mean, it's from 260 million in 2016 to projected 500 million in 2021. So that includes our senior population. People are engaging with wearables. They're sharing data. They're competing. It's really is a growing market. And last but not least, the Internet of Things, meaning we know that older adults have multiple devices connected to the internet in their home, whether it's tablets or voice user interfaces. All of those things are connected. So we really have to have an understanding of what are the tools that the seniors are using and what is the gap that we can fill with technology. So I wanted to share with you some of the interesting companies that I've come across, whether I've heard some of their pitches, presentations, either conferences or one-on-one, and choice is really a good thing. So I'm not going to give you too many choices. I have just kind of selected a couple, and a disclaimer, I don't work for any of these companies. I have no stake. I just wanted to kind of showcase some of the more interesting innovations that are out there. And the first one that I wanted to start with was Eversound. I actually just saw one of the creators of this company. I thought it was a really interesting, very interesting idea. They're relatively new. Their market is more than just a hearing aid. So it's just basically wireless headphones. They help with residents overcoming hearing loss and focus on enjoying more well-being and social engagement. And if you invest in this technology, basically you receive a suitcase with anywhere from 10 to 30 headphones. They each have a personal volume control dial. They're very lightweight, very easy to use. Right now, they're focusing on the CCRC nursing home market, but I did talk to the founder, and he was interested in going into sort of the aging in place space. So let's say having a dinner conversation, or you have a dinner party, and it might be kind of odd everybody wearing headphones, but kind of getting people engaged. So I thought it was quite interesting. So this is pretty easy to use, and this is one of sort of the qualities that I look for in a technology. It connects to really any audio source, including your AV system or your TV or a music player, which is great. You can charge it easily. You can take it around in the suitcase, and it's one of those engagement technologies that I thought can be really impactful. And we know about hearing loss and dementia, and so this is a great way to kind of keep the people in the back who are usually not that engaged to kind of bring them into the circle. So I thought Eversound was really interesting. So the next one is Mind VR. So I talked about virtual reality being a hot topic. There's lots of companies that are interested in this, particularly creating sort of safe, calming spaces for older adults who are experiencing cognitive impairment. Mind VR is focused on the senior market, which is interesting, and they really provide VR solutions to assisted living, CCRCs, 55 plus living communities, as well as home health care providers. So they have quite a library of VR content, and they do offer original programming. So their really focus is on sort of creating these happy, memorable experience for seniors. And they claim that they're working with leading US universities and researchers to study this, which is great. I think that's wonderful. I think there's a big difference between good, solid research and market research. And so it's important, for at least for me as someone who evaluates technologies, it's important that they are interested in working with bona fide researchers who can give them real data about how they're engaging the population, really what the benefits and outcomes are. And so there's really no research reports yet on their website. I'm guessing they're sort of in the early stages, but it would be very interesting to follow this company and see where they go. So feel free to peruse their website. It's some of their videos are quite interesting. So the next one I wanted to include because I talked about health and health apps, and there's lots and lots of options. This was a little bit different. I actually met the owner of AgeWell a couple of years ago, and we engaged in a conversation, and I thought the application was very interesting. So this is a fall risk assessment tool. It was developed by a physical therapist, and really the idea is to not only empower clinicians, but also the individual. And so the person really engaging with their data and looking at what they call their EQ score. And so their core product is Equilibrium. It's a mobile software balance assessment app. And they say it evaluates postural stability. It's supposed to be revolutionizing the way seniors are monitoring their signs of musculoskeletal, neurological, so these types of dysfunctions. So the EQ app is really unique, and it's an interesting portable solution that really kind of collects patient data. And I know from the developer that they are working with some solid researchers, and they are collecting a lot of data. And so I think when that comes out, it'll be really interesting to see what the outcomes are. So the idea is to predict and prevent falls before they happen, which I think would be the dream come true in technology or in app development. So it's a great way to sort of look at this space as well, the fall prevention space. And I know this is more of a health app. It's not particularly focused on social engagement, but they really are involving the person and making them own their data. A lot of the time, it's really kind of sent out into this the iCloud space, but this is putting the data in the hands of the person. So being aware of your EQ score can be quite meaningful. And I know that they're working on an Alexa skill. So if you're in your home and you're walking around and you ask Alexa what your EQ score is, you can make adjustments. If it's lower or higher than it was yesterday, then you need to move more or keep moving at the same level. So it really kind of gives power to the user and their data. So the next one is Ohmni Labs. They are not focused on the senior living space technologies, but they do have in-home solutions as well as health solutions. So I thought it was an interesting technology to feature. And to be honest with you, there's so many robotics out on the market. I mean, I'm sure you've seen Jibo and other ones that can sometimes be a little bit infantilizing and sometimes a little silly, and the usefulness is, I'm not sure if it's really there yet. This was a little bit different, just because they're really kind of reclaiming that their robots are affordable, which is important. Nobody really wants to spend $5,000 on a Jibo. And, they talk about having that sort of emotional connection, because this device essentially can follow you around. And if you're a Big Bang Theory fan, you'll know that virtual presence device that Sheldon had. And it's sort of supposed to be that natural interaction with somebody else who's on the screen. So they're claiming that this can help you stay connected in a natural, engaging way with family, with your healthcare provider. So there is a healthcare focus, and of course they talk about isolation and depression and how this can really connect you with family, friends, and your potentially your clinician. So it was specifically really built to amplify the human presence. So it says that it really mimics human height and fluid moving. The neck apparently moves fluidly. So I haven't experienced this live, but I am familiar with the technology. So they have a very interesting motion map control interface that really kind of pulls everything together, and it's supposed to make you feel like you're really interacting with a human who's right there. So that was really interesting. And their focus is on innovation, but also on cost and ease of use, which are really important factors. As I mentioned, we often can afford 5 or 10 of these units, and if we want to sort of see impact, cost is really important. So Ohmni Labs was really interesting. The next one is SingFit. So much like a lot of the music therapy applications, I thought it was an interesting solution, and you can browse their website. They have a lot of case studies, and I think they have a huge they have a lot of access to really interesting music, and they've made the interface very easy to use for engaging large groups and kind of to facilitate group activities. So it really can be tailored specifically for age groups, for musical tastes, and cognitive and physical health. So that's the nice thing. You can really use the algorithm to input, who are you working with? What are their interests? What are their abilities? And then the device can help you make the best choice to facilitate through SingFit. So they have some other options, SingFit Prime, that they've created specifically for senior living communities, adult day programs, skilled nursing, that type of thing. So they have a unique lyric coach. So they have a focus on dementia and really how to really engage older adults with dementia, which is really interesting. And so they report benefits to participants. I haven't dug deep enough to know what type of research they have done, but they report percentages of increase in mood elevation and reduction in anxiety. But we know in general that music therapy is really, really impactful. So it's kind of a nice whole package of music group therapy. So I wanted to showcase SingFit, just in case you haven't heard of them. So the next topic I wanted to mention was cognitive orthotics. We have heard of many. Cognitive orthotics is sort of the fancy way of talking about the high-tech version of something that's really kind of low-tech, external memory aids, and we know brain training, and we haven't really seen the impact, but there are a couple of companies that are really claiming that there is some significant impact, and they help you sort of train your brain and prevent memory loss. And so I wanted to showcase a couple to kind of give you an idea, just in case you haven't heard of them. The first one is Neurotrack, and digital brain health is a huge industry. I mean, we're talking $3 billion and probably will double by 2020. So high adoption of cognitive acuity apps. It really shows that there's demand. Even though there's a lot of skeptics, it's being widely adopted. So, a product that comes out with clinical evidence really has the opportunity to gain a lot of share. So this space is increasingly important, and we see this not only in senior living communities, but we see this with individuals who are aging in place and really want to keep track of their cognition. So Neurotrack, it really kind of just establishes a baseline and monitors your memory over time. Once again, this is one of those things that we have to consider in terms of security and privacy, and who has access to this baseline, who has access to your data. I mean, obviously I'm a cynic, so, I trust tech companies, but we have to kind of think about where is this data going. And, they talk about a memory assessment, and I guess they're trying to attempt really sort of detect changes over time. And this is a tricky space to be in, where you're sort of giving the individual power to their data, but that data can be really damaging sometimes. So if you're really showing someone that they're declining very quickly, what does that mean? And so there's some ethics involved in here that we should think about, but it's a huge space. And they talk about research proving that changing lifestyle obviously has a big impact on memory health, which it does. And Neurotrack tries to kind of give you the tools, the guidance, the support. So it's kind of a whole package to protect and preserve your memory. So they talk about every 3 to 6 months. They give you another assessment. They track how your memory changes over time. And they talk about working with leading scientists to bring in the latest technology to improve your memory health. So something to think about. When I talk to participants, I think everyone is really excited about brain training, and particularly with voice user interfaces as well. There's lots of skills and apps that can do that. Choosing a good one is tricky. And like I said, I'm quite cynical, so it's difficult for me to find something that has a lot of clinical outcomes that really prove. Improve is a tricky word as well, but really that showcase improvement. But I think these companies are really kind of trying to move in that direction. And so a similar one is BrainCheck. So much like Neurotrack, it's really a neurocognitive testing company. So they talk about assessments taking 10 minutes. There's an interactive portal. The unique thing about BrainCheck is that it's not only for an individual, it's actually also for providers. So this is also an interesting thing to think about. Who are you giving your data to? So they talk about allowing physicians to provide cognitive health education and dementia prevention recommendations. So this may be a valuable tool for some. There's remote monitoring, cognitive care management, and they talk about personalizing it to the patient's needs. And so BrainCheck claims to provide clinical decision support, so mapping specific cognitive impairments to areas where a patient is likely to struggle, and then giving you a broad range of data. And so once again, they're trying to empower the user, but also the clinician. And they have support for providers and individuals, so it is a little bit unique in terms of how and what type of data they provide you with. So a lot of these companies, as you can tell, are really kind of trying to give you control over your health. They're trying to give you data and kind of help you to make informed decisions, which is really a good thing. So the next topic I'll talk about is sort of what I'm really immersed in, which is voice user interfaces. And I've been doing the Alexa study for close to a year now. I don't want to give you too many details. I'm a researcher. I can talk about my research all day long, but I wanted to kind of give you an idea sort of where I'm coming from in terms of how I'm conducting this research and what are some of the things that I'm interested in finding out. And the reason why I chose Alexa was not for any particular reason. At the time when I started the study, I was really interested in voice first. I was really interested in the actual intelligent client. So it was really Alexa that was important, not so much the physical device, which was the Echo. So Google came out with a similar technology. What I have found is that in terms of the skills and the capabilities that Alexa has. It really is one of the more unique voice user interfaces out on the market, and it's one of the better ones. I mean, there's a lot of money that goes into the research and development of the Alexa skills, and now users are able to kind of develop their own. So that aspect of customizing the tools is really, really wonderful and unique. So this has been a long study. I've had close to 10 couples. They're all aging in place. And the uniqueness of my research really focused on the relationship. So it wasn't so much, we looked at usability, which was important, but it really, the focus was on the relationship. And so how is the relationship between the caregiver, care recipient, and how does technology that's in their home impact that relationship? And so I have a lot of data on usability. I have a lot of data on, frequencies of usage. What are the most common things that you've asked of Alexa? But the focus was really kind of supporting autonomy and independence. And because a lot of the participants that I'm working with, pretty much all of them, have a progressive cognitive impairment, we know that things will change. And so I wanted to look at a technology that can grow with them, that can really kind of be able to adapt to their needs, and not just the person who's going through cognitive impairment and that experience, but also their caregiver. And so Alexa was an interesting choice, and we found out a lot. Like I said, I don't want to overwhelm you with results and research results, but there's some really kind of interesting things that came out, and we have ended this project because we're just kind of moving on to the next phase and working with different populations like low vision seniors. But we really found some really unique ways that our participants were using the device. And so I have a few examples, but one of the more the ones that really kind of stick out in my mind is I went back to a participant's home after I installed one of the Alexa devices in their living room, and it was sort of just the main big cylinder. And when I came back a couple of months later, they had purchased 6 more. They had placed all around their house, in their bedroom, in the basement. So they were connected, and they were using it as walkie-talkies. And so it was something that I had never thought about. And honestly, that's the beauty of qualitative research, the idea that you kind of discover things that you really didn't envision. And this was the purpose of the study, to kind of see how people were using it in their everyday life. So that was really insightful. And there's many other really insightful ways that I've learned from engaging with the person with dementia and their caregiver. And so we conducted a lot of interviews. We talked to both parties, and we discussed, the impact on each of them. And we had a variety of answers. We had some people who liked it, some people who didn't really use it or enjoy it that much, but it wasn't a bother. It wasn't taking away from their autonomy. If they didn't use it, it was just an artifact sitting on a chair or on a table. It didn't really kind of impact that autonomy, which was an interesting finding. So I'm happy to share more. I know AARP is doing a similar study with isolation. So my focus was a little bit different, but I'm happy to share more offline if anybody's interested. So I wanted to move on to kind of talk about some final thoughts about the challenges of selecting technology for senior living. And it's, one of the key components is ease of use. What is the support system? Is there tech support? And I completely understand that it's hard to kind of purchase technology and then devote your IT person or your IT team when they're being pulled in many directions. But we really kind of have to think about that one size can't fit all. And my vision really for the future is that more and more technologies will be developed where it really is easy to customize, and we can work with on the back end of the application to kind of select specific abilities and age ranges, and we can really kind of customize, but we're not there yet. So there's quite a few barriers, but there's lots of interesting opportunities. And we have to think about technologies that are have stigma associated with them and that are hard to use. And those are really not the ones that we want to focus on. People can be embarrassed. I mean, the best technology is the one that's really masked, that looks like a piece of attire or it looks like furniture. And, it's really important to kind of encourage our residents and our customers to utilize devices that are helpful and can really have an impact. So there's lots of different options. There's lots of different solutions. And I'll talk about what are some of the ways that you can kind of bring in technology into your communities if sort of that's what you're interested in. But as I mentioned, it's really it's important to stay on top of this. There's lots of blogs and guides out there that can be quite helpful. But don't be afraid to bring in a person from the company who does a presentation, and whether you like it or not, you can make an informed choice rather than kind of buying into something that may or may not work. And senior care technology should really have features that are not completely foreign to the clientele. It should really be a complement to human delivered service rather than a replacement. We don't want to replace the human. So training stuff is really key. And technology does cost money. Training costs money. What are some ways that we can kind of maybe get that for free? So the next slide talks about researchers are dying, and once again, I'm just being a little bit cheeky, but what researchers are dying for is your customers, and researchers are dying for participants. And so it can be a very powerful and wonderful relationship between someone who's interested in kind of scientific results and you who are interested in quality of life for those who you serve. And so, for example, I've worked with companies, I've worked with communities, and I am the person who's applying for grants, which is where the free staff training and free technology comes from. I'm the person who's training your staff. I'm the person who's getting money to purchase a technology and to provide it to your customer. So it can be a really great relationship. And it's consumer tech can also be a solution. It doesn't always have to be something that's specifically designed for the senior population. And so we really kind of have to be adamant about what is a good technology and how can it serve more than one person at a time. So we also have to be cognizant about progressive illnesses and really kind of understand that one product or service has a specific window of time in which it's applicable. So there's a lot out there on the market, and you don't really need every new iteration of a device, but it's important to kind of choose something that's right for your particular customer. So if you don't want to invest money, as I mentioned, there's lots of ways to look at resources and try to get free technology, and partnering up with someone from a university or someone who's really, there's professional writers who do this all day and try to get money. So that's how you get free technology. And once again, I'm happy to talk offline and connect you. I'm sure there's lots of people outside of Maryland, but if you are in Maryland, I'm happy to connect you with people who are interested in partnering and really would love to get into your communities and help you with technology and give you some insight. And so I'm happy to kind of be that connection. So what is the future of tech and senior care? Well, we do have an oversaturated tech market, which is a good thing. We like competition. Competition is a good thing. But, I'm starting to see that a lot more consumer technology is really being adapted to the needs of seniors. And obviously, Alexa is a great example, but technologies that are really a hub for connecting you with other ones that can really kind of give a holistic experience to the person. And so tech for seniors has drastically improved over the last decade. So I see this as a really great promise, and we're not really focusing anymore on just GPS tracking and medication dispensers. The focus is much broader, and so robotics are getting better, and research is better, and clinical trials are being ran, and so the outcomes are really, really evident. And so there's lots of interesting things to explore out there. So the next slide, I was just asked to mention very briefly about some of the ways that I involve students in my work, and I think that's critically important. And the future is really our students, and it's our young people, and bringing them into research, getting them excited about aging and technology. And the photo on the left is my students installing an Alexa in one of our participants' homes and building relationships. And the next one is the four of us presenting at a research forum, and once again engaging students and bringing real life situations into the classroom. And so exposure to me is key. And so a lot of my students are information systems, so they may not be focused on aging services, but they really get the connection, which is really exciting. And so those will be the future designers. Those will be the people who will be developing senior tech in the future. So I really like to bring them in and get them involved in research and have them have that real world experience and build those relationships. Those intergenerational relationships are so critical. So that's all for me. I would love to hear if you have any questions. I know it was quite a bit, and I tried to kind of throw in as much as I could. And like I said, I'm happy to talk offline. So would love any questions.
Thank you so much, Galina. This was great. And one question I have is, can you talk a little bit about, in your work, in your research, what brings you the most joy as you do your work, and what's your biggest frustration on the flip side?
Oh, it's a great question. What brings me the most joy is the relationships. So on a personal level, I mean, I have developed really close relationships with my participants, and that doesn't really happen that often in research. And so, I've gone back to homes where I've mowed the lawn and fixed internet, and have been offered cookies and have seen bar mitzvah videos, and that's really what gives me the most joy. And what the most frustrating would be how other researchers view participants, and sometimes there's that disconnect. And it's still difficult to bridge the technologists and the gerontologists. And so that's really my passion, is to kind of bring insight to each of the communities, the technology community and the gerontology community, and bring people together so we start a conversation and then we create tech that's really impactful.
That's great. And a question from a participant we have here is, what blogs would you recommend on technology?
What? I'm sorry, I didn't hear. What?
What blog would you recommend that focus on technology?
Yes, sure, absolutely. I'm happy to compile a list. I would say that the one that I probably check the most is Lori Orlov's blog. She has a lot of reports. She does this newsletter on a regular basis, but there's lots of other ones that are coming up, and there's lots of guides. AARP they're very focused on technology, so I definitely peruse their guides. But Lori's, and I'm happy to kind of give you a list of the ones that I follow. That's a great question.
And finally, what do you think about Amazon entering the healthcare space in their recent purchase of the tech company PillPack?
Yes, I think it's very interesting. I think it's obviously a very smart move, and it's not just Amazon, but all the big wigs are doing that, like Google and Microsoft. And I honestly think that's really exciting. I think it will revolutionize the space, and there's some really wonderful things that we'll see in the future. So I think it's great.
Fabulous. Well, Galina, I just want to thank you for joining us today on the webinar to talk about digitizing engagement. It was an excellent conversation, and I have put in the chat box for those that are in the webinar room a link to our post-webinar evaluation. Please remember that to get your CEU credits, you'll need to fill that out by midnight this Sunday, and the CEU certificates will go out Monday by Monday afternoon. I also have up here on the screen a list of our upcoming webinars through the end of the year. And we have some exciting things coming up. We will not have a webinar next month, but starting in September, we will be back online. And each of these webinars, again, will offer free NAB and NCAP CEU credits. And I'm just going to go back and put Galina's information back on the screen for those who might be interested. And I wish you all a great rest of your week and a fabulous weekend. And we will see you in September. Thank you, Galina.
Thank you so much, Megan.